Good afternoon and welcome back to Rooski's Garage. I hope everybody's having a great afternoon, and I mean that from the heart. There's a lot of stuff I wanted to cover today, so we're going to get right to it. I'm not the kind of guy that likes the fancy intros where people are doing burnouts in their car and jumping stuff. It's just too much. I've got a lot going on. I'm trying out a new microphone today, which I know looks ridiculous, but I was feeling sassy, so I thought I'd give it a try and see if I get better sound quality. And I decided to wear my corduroy polo and try to up my game a little bit as well. So today I'm going to take you on a quick tour of the front end of this truck that I finally got completed. A couple of new items that I put on there that I didn't show in my last episode, and a couple of pointers for you guys. I am using the original tank out of my truck because it was a diesel before, and the inside of this tank is immaculate. It's shiny and clean inside, so I thought, why would I want to spend $200 for a different tank when I can just use the original? And I completely sanded down and repainted the outside, and it looks great, and we're going to use that. I did some research on fuel systems for an LS swap, and I'm basically uneducated at this. I have to do the same thing that you guys do, and that is to sift through 100 different YouTube videos and try to find all the information I can. And thank God that where I work, I've got some buddies that have done this several times, so I'm able to draw from them and get pointers on this stuff. But at the end of the day, I didn't want to spend the money, but I went ahead and sprung for a Holley sending unit. I've got an Evil Energy 10 micron fuel filter and fuel line kit, and believe it or not, you can get every bit of this stuff you can get off Amazon. This, no. And I ordered a tool kit for the AM fittings because a lot of people say that if you use regular wrenches on that, you might take the chance of rounding one of those off or something. So I thought, it's not expensive. It's like 25 bucks. This stuff, this whole kit with the fuel line and AM fittings and the filter was easily less than $100. We're talking more like in the probably the $80 range. This was a bit pricey. I'll get to that later. This killed my soul to spend this kind of money over something that weighs maybe 2 pounds. But first I'm going to spin the camera around, like I told you, and show you some intricacies of the front end in case you're doing a swap like this, or if you decide to take all this apart and completely refurb it like I did, which I highly recommend, because if you're taking your truck apart, replace the stuff that's old and wore out and put new stuff on there if you can. If you can't, run what you got, but you're going to eventually have to do that. All right, for starters, let's do a quick disclaimer. I am just like you guys. I operate on a budget. This is my work cart. I built this out of a dilapidated grill, and it's turned out to be pretty awesome. I've got a floor jack. You need one of those. I've got a shop fan that I built myself. I've got all my wrenches laid out, all my gear. This is my workstation. It looks like I'm the keyboardist for ELO. It's amazing. No, it's not. But at least I'm in the dry, and at least I have a slab floor, and I'm very thankful for that. And this truck had 102,000 and some change on it, so it wasn't like extremely high miles. But the problem is this thing's sat in a field for 15 years. So I replaced the upper control arms, and then I went on about my merry way, took the steering box off, took the stabilizer off, all with the intentions of just grinding them down and repainting them. I took my center link off, my tie rods, which connect here and here, And it also connects to my idler arm here. There's a bracket on the frame here. I took all that off. And underneath the steering box, in case you're new to this, that's called a pitman arm. And I took that off as well. But the more I delved into it, the more I realized that everything I was dealing with was so old and crusty that I just needed to replace the whole darn thing. I bought new tie rods for both sides, including the slip sleeve for those, because my other ones were so corroded I could barely get them to move, and I just didn't want to deal with that. So the reason why I'm sharing these things with you guys is because you have to make a decision in your mind, and I understand because I do things on a budget just like you do, and I try to provide on my channel the easiest ways and the most financially efficient ways to do stuff. But at the end of the day, it wasn't worth my time to replace the bushings when I could just buy the whole control arm for not a whole lot more money. So I ended up replacing the upper and lower control arms. I kept my original springs, but I took those out and sanded those and repainted them as well. So you're going to have a lot of time involved just in sanding and repainting stuff should you choose to use that. But that is cost efficient. I'm not a hot rod guy. I'm never going to go out and just burn rubber all the time because I'm the guy that has to replace the tires. I think that's nonsense, even though YouTube's full of videos where guys are doing burnouts all the time and stuff, whatever. This is going to be a creeper. I'm going to ooze down the street nice and easy and let people take in the full view, and I'm going to use this as a grocery getter. That's it. So at the same time, though, I want to have the best technology that I can afford to have for the time. When you get ready, should you choose to break your front end down like I did, before you take the center link apart, you need to measure between your tie rods from that point to that point. Measure center to center and get the right measurement. You see right there that says D for driver's side. The other side says P. It's on the bottom side of that where you can't see it. But you need to be able to put your new tie rods back close to that same length so that it doesn't cost you a lot of time or money when you go to get the front end aligned. But then I just went ahead and started ripping stuff apart, and I didn't take close pictures. And this center link has to be in a certain position in order for you to get your tie rods on. And a C10 Chevrolet or a C15 GMC, just know ahead of time that your tie rods go up and come through this way onto the center link. And I had put mine in wrong and had to take it out and redo it and kind of mess around with the configuration. Whereas if I would just taken some real in-depth photographs of this, I wouldn't have had to deal with the heartache of it. When you go to replace your upper control arms, always remember these two bolts right here is what holds that on. And all of these right here, it looks like a really cheesy design, but these are shims. You have to count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this one has 9, if you can believe it. You need to save those, and when you go back with your new control arms, put them back just like they were once again. So when you go get your front end aligned, everything matches up pretty close to what it was when you got the truck and rolled it to your house. And don't forget to bag and tag every single thing that you take apart, and you'll be good to go. All right, let's switch over to the fuel system. I'll start right here, real easy deal. This is the tool that you're going to be using, or I hope that you're going to be using, in order to put your AN fittings on, because switching over to AN style fittings is definitely the way to go when you're dealing with an LS swap, according to everything I know. This wrench goes from a 6 AN to a 10, and it's like a crescent wrench, which is super cool. Then it comes with a separate wrench that's a backer, because you need to be able to hold tension on the other side of that as well. And I'm going to try to remember to leave links in the description of what I purchased. There's several different styles like this. This was about 25 bucks. Not a big deal. Now, the Evil Energy fuel filter acts as, or you can actually get filters that act as a regulator, but you have to end up running. There's the fittings all there. The reason why I purchased this is because you can take this filter apart, clean it, and put it back together again. I thought that was really amazing, as opposed to just pulling one off there and replacing it with the standard Chevrolet filter. It's a 10 micron. That's what I was told by one of my buddies, that's what they suggest you put on there. So that's cool. The Evil Energy fuel system, they call it, comes with, I think, 20 feet of this black steel wrapped hose set up for AM fittings, and then a whole buttload of the fittings themselves. So I think I'm set on that. This is what I wanted to share with you. I did a lot of research, and there's ways that you can get around spending this kind of money. But in order to do that, you would have to buy a fuel sending unit from an 87 Chevrolet C10, which was the first year that they offered fuel injection. And then you have to put a bastard pump in there that's rated for LS engines, because you have to have a fuel pump that'll put out 58 PSI. So I went ahead and bought the Holly, and it literally killed my soul to do it. This was 500 bucks, folks, and some people may not be able to afford that. I totally get it. If you run into the issue where you just don't want to spend the money, I encourage you, because I watch a lot of their videos, go to the YouTube site called Ugly Truck Experience. The man and his wife. The man is a very knowledgeable dude. He knows what he's doing, and he will show you how to do it the other way. I just wanted the easiest, most problem-free route that I could take, and that's why I sprang for this. Now here's the sending unit. It's got a Holly pump on it. It's at a weird angle and everything, but it's made to lay right down in the 14-inch depth of a C10 or C15 tank. It comes with a specialized sock filter for the end of this that has a sponge material in it that actually absorbs an exorbitant amount of fuel, because my original tank doesn't have baffles in it. So according to what I've been told, if you stop suddenly, or if you're cornering and you don't have a full tank of gas, sometimes you'll experience some juddering and your vehicle cut out because the fuel sloshes to one area of the tank and you don't get fuel to the engine, and you'll experience problems. Whereas this, it sucks in and holds a large amount of fuel where you're supposedly never going to experience that. Looks like it comes with some pretty cool instructions too, but it doesn't look like they sprang for any stickers. I'm a sticker guy. Evil Energy will load you down with stickers. You'll have Evil Energy stickers out the wazoo. And also I ordered some parts off Summit, hats off to Summit, Evil Energy and Summit, and even Holly. The shipping turnaround is very fast. This was 3 days maximum. This was 2 days, and the stuff I ordered from Summit was 2 days. And Summit sent me not only a whole lot of stickers, but I even got a new hat with the deal. So that was amazing. And I really appreciated that. I know that's small stuff to a lot of people, but if they're willing to push their products out there and throw you some cool stuff in the mix, I'm all about that. So anyway, that gives you a rundown of what you're getting for your money. This sure doesn't feel like $500, but we're going to see how this works. So we're going to move over to the tank. We're going to get this set in, and hopefully before the weekend's over with, I'm going to have my tank set back in the truck again, and we can move on. That'll be one more thing to mark off the list. All right, so the first thing we got to do is get this old sending unit out. I've got it loose. If you don't live in the country, then you just don't know how bad it is with mice and rats. I got a pasture out here. Mice and rats just migrate around here like crazy. They'll get in everything that's got a hole in it. That's why I had to put the original hose back on after I painted it. Put the cap back on just to keep them from crawling in there and starting to make a nest or something. Leaks diesel all over the place. God bless. So this has a fuel feed, a return, and a vent. That's basically what it looks like. And the new unit does not require return, thank God. What happens is with the Holly unit, any excess fuel that gets pumped up by the pump that doesn't make it into the motor immediately vents back into the tank again, whereas this makes its way all the way to the front to where the diesel canister used to sit, and then if there was excess fuel, it would return it back. So you had 2 lines that ran the full length of the cab in order to vent back to the tank again, and this new system should alleviate every bit of that. All right. We're going to follow the exact directions of this little unit. And one thing that I noticed right off the bat that I want to make sure you guys are aware of is that when you go to install the new sock on the end of this, there's a little cap over the end of this. You got to pull that off, or there's no way to get fuel into the pump itself. Just always remember, don't let that slide, or you'll be sitting there going, what the heck is going on? That's on there good and snug. I'm a little surprised that that's all there is. Then I've got to remove the 2 screws holding the fuel level sender in place. So these 2 Phillips screws have got to come out. One of them's got a ground hook to it that you're going to want to put back on, so don't forget that. The O-ring is going to be on the bottom side. Up over all this stuff, it's going to go into place right here. And you have to take this fuel level indicator, there's 2 screws that hold this on, that has to come off. Okay, so just know that ahead of time. Then you feed this down into the tank, and the reason why you have to take this fuel indicator, level indicator off is because it won't go in the tank without that. Once you get it down to this point, wherever all the guts are in the tank, there's just 2 screws, and you're going to put those back into place. Once you get the fuel level indicator screws back in, I'm gonna spin this around where you can see it. There's just 2 screws that hold this unit on. You just take it off so you can flop everything in the tank. Then you tighten these screws back down again. There's no torque settings. Just bow hog it. That's what I call. Just put it tight, so you don't have to worry about it ever falling off there. Make sure your ground wire's on. Now, you simply work this down, let it fall to rest. I need to get this out of my hair for a minute. I can put that back on in a second. You slide your snap ring up over the top of this, and it looks like it's going to be a tight squeeze because of that O-ring. Yeah, that's going to be a tight squeeze, but that's good. You want it to make a good seal. All right, I got my rubber hammer, my screwdriver. I'm going to push down on this one side a little bit. Try to get her to slide, and you cannot do this wrong just because it's kind of dummy proof. Once you get that to catch on all 3 sides, then it'll start moving its way fairly easily and slide into place. And that's pretty much it. It went in fairly smooth. I hope I gave you enough direction on this, but I'm a little put out that this actually goes 180 out from what I'm used to seeing, because my other fuel lines, knowing that this bracket goes against the frame, the back of the cab is here, and all my lines have to go this way, so I'm going to have to put a slight curve to my fuel lines, and I wasn't really expecting that. That's kind of a fluke deal, but anyway, it's in. I think it's going to be fine. We're going to stab this tank in and see what happens. So if I've done everything correctly, this is what you're left with. These 2 ears right here and right here indicate how that thing sits, and then the snap ring slides accordingly. And if I know what I'm talking about, you simply have a feed to the engine and a vent. That's it. So there's no such thing as a return on this, because it returns the fuel automatically via the pump and the setup inside. So, and supposedly this hooks right up with your fuel system for the LS. It's got another piece on there that ties onto this, so you can solder wires in if you have to. So the next trick for us is just to get the tank itself mounted back on the truck. If you're watching this series, you obviously got a C10 or in my case a GMC C15 truck. When I drop this tank, one thing that I found to be a little simpler, this bracket and the strap that goes underneath and wraps around and connects here, this part of the tank faces the cab, or goes underneath the cab actually. This does not pass through the frame to hook up, and so you can just, from the inside of the frame, you can take out these 4 bolts, and this one will just fall with the strap still on it. But on the rear strap, just always keep in mind that it has to pass through this hole and then through the frame to actually tighten down or to take off. So when you go to put your tank back in, you're better off to go ahead and mount this bracket, leave the strap loose, tilt the tank up and set it on here, and then lift the front up in place and hook it up, and then lastly run your strap through and tighten it down. I just think that's easier. If you are dropping your tank, this is how I found it. I took the 4 bolts out on the front and it was all loose and ready to go, and then I got to the back and realized that I had to take the strap loose because it went through the frame, as well as taking the 4 bolts out, and then that whole assembly just falls down on the ground. Then you're stuck with the tank that's just sitting there. That's not a big deal, but I just feel like this gives me a resting point to put my tank on, and then I can just lift up the front, put the 4 bolts on, and basically that thing will just sit there and give you a few minutes to go ahead and put this strap on and get it done. Now on mine, this strap would not come loose. This bolt was completely rusted. It wouldn't come off with my impact or anything. It started bending the strap. So I went ahead and took a high speed and just cut it off, and then I welded a new bolt on the end of this. But on hindsight, if I would have probably soaked that down with Croil or something, I could have got it loose. I was just afraid I was going to damage the strap. And these things are pretty expensive. If you have to buy this assembly, you're looking at $100 per strap, and I just didn't want to spend the money, so I refurbished them, and that's a pain. But like I said before, sometimes if you've got time and you don't have a lot of money, just put some elbow grease into it and you can make them look good. I mean, these look great. Okay, these are 9/16 head. Once you get them all snugged up together, then you can go ahead and put a little muku on them. Well, with the tank is in place, I can still get to my lines whenever I get ready for that. I'm going to go ahead and probably stick this through the hole there and at least start it, but I'm not going to tighten it up until I'm confident that I was able to get everything done on my fuel lines. One little thing that I forgot to mention, and I don't know if you can see this. Let me see if I can get in close enough. You see these strips? And right here on the strap itself, how it's got a strip running through the middle of this. I went ahead and covered the flat surface of this bracket all the way around and the strap itself with rubber just to keep it from being metal on metal in case there was any movement or vibration. The original pads that are on these are usually dilapidated. When you take your tank off, they look like crap. I pulled those off, and after I had my parts all sanded and painted where they were nice and smooth, and I covered it with this stuff. And I'm an electrician, so I don't know if this is the best product to use, but it works good for what I use it in the field, and I think it'll hold up. This is made for wrapping electrical joints that you make. It's Scotch brand. See if I can get here close enough. It's called Scotch 130C linerness rubber splicing tape. So you can pick this up at Lowe's or any electrical supply house. Works really good. It's sticky on this side. The outside is just, and it's super flexible. It's stretchy. And I didn't put any stretch on it. I just laid it in there nice and smooth, got it to adhere. It's only about an inch or an inch and a quarter wide, so you might have to put more than one strip to cover the area, but that'll hold. And it stayed good and snug the whole time I was sliding the tank on and everything else, so I think that's a pretty good fix for that. Anyway, I just keep piling you guys up with as much information as I can in case you're doing this on your own vehicle. It'll save you the hassle of having to research this and spending the exorbitant amount of money to order pads that came on those, because I'm sure they're going to be higher than this. I bet you this is not even, I bet it's 15 bucks or less. So anyway, now because I'm stuck waiting on parts or waiting on my buddy to get back with me on the fuel lines, I think we're going to switch directions. And now we're going to move over to the Firewall, and I'm going to start prepping that for paint today and possibly get some color on that. And then below this seam right here, everything under that is just going to be black. So I'll probably do that first, let that be drying while I'm prepping everything else, and then we'll worry about doing the color last. Alright, so as far as I can tell by the different chips and stuff that's on this truck, that the original primer was black. And so I took a piece of step flashing, flattened it out, roughed it up, cleaned it off with alcohol, wiped it down because this stuff always has like a little bit of an oily film with it. And I covered it in black primer, and then I'm going to go with my color match paint and paint over this and hold this up in different spots against the original color and see how close it is. I'm going to use it regardless, but I'm just hoping that it comes out fairly close. While I'm waiting on that to happen, I'm going to clean this plate right here. I've already sanded it down. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want it to look as good as possible. Once I get that cleaned, I'm going to go along the back edge of this with paper and mask it off so I don't get any of the primer or any of the original color. I went over that with a Scotch Brite and roughed it up, and I think my color match will go right over the top of that and adhere just fine. It's just a Firewall. I just want it to look as clean as it can be. This I'm going to primer black first, then go over it with the color match at the same time I'm painting everything else, but I want this to have a chance to be drying. See if I need to do any mild sanding, and I might have to put more than one coat of primer on that. That's where we stand, and that's what we're dealing with right now. Okay, now I've got a nice wet alcohol towel. We'll go over this one last time because I know this dissipates really well in the oxygen in the air. And I just want everything as clean as it can be, especially on the back edge, so that my tape will stick. Alrighty then, I think I got everything taped off where I won't blow any paint where it's not supposed to go. Let's try this. Alright, we'll let that dry for a few minutes. See what it looks like. Alright, the primer is all dry, but there's a debacle. I did a color match on two pieces of metal because they suggest with the paint that they ship that you always do a color match on something other than what you're going to be painting, just to make sure you're happy with the actual color. So I primed this one in black like the truck was originally primed. I primered this one in the gray, and primer underneath the paint always does make a little difference in the hue. And when I got done, this one by far, and I don't know if you can see it on camera, but this is definitely darker, and from any distance at all it just looks like brown. This one actually has that orange hue to it, and that's what my truck looks like, especially after years of fade. And that's why I named this truck Penny, because that's what it reminds me of, a penny. And this is what we're going to go with. So I'm going to have to reprime that in gray to make sure that matches, and then we'll go ahead and go and throw some color on it. All right. It's another day, Sunday morning, and I'm ready to get after it. Got my hat turned around backwards so you know it's time to get serious. Yesterday I cut it off for the evening after I got the whole underside painted in gloss black. Looks clean and tight. And now today I'm going to get serious about getting this Firewall color matched. I'm going to flip the camera around and show you a couple of pertinent areas and my ideas on what I want to do with it, and we'll go from there. I don't want to put you through the process of me taping everything off. It's just tape and paper. It's nothing exciting, but I want to show you where I'm putting my tape lines and why I'm doing it that way, and we'll go ahead and get started. It's going to be a good day, I think. I'm ready to get this a little further down the road. I'm going to put one coat on the master cylinder bracketry, just so, and let it have a chance to maybe set up a minute before I hit the whole thing, just because I know that's going to probably take more than one coat. And I'm not going to go crazy with the Firewall portion of this because, to be honest with you, I've only got one can of paint, and I just want to make sure I've got enough to do it all so I don't have to stop somewhere about halfway through. So let's get going. All right, starting on the passenger side, this blower motor, the air conditioning, what I call the triangle, it's a big fiberglass housing. I know a lot of this is going to be covered where you can't see it. I don't know if you can tell, but like from right here to right there and down, you see that area that's just a little darker than the rest? That's the lip of that housing. So anything inside this, I'll just lightly dust it because it's not going to be seen. But everything outside of this housing will possibly be in view, and so I'm going to go ahead and hit it. But all this upper, I'm going to hit. I know that'll be visible to a degree, even though the engine's going to be sitting there. I just want it to look clean and nice. Up here on the top, well, first of all, right here, that's covered with like a rhino liner from the factory. I'm not even going to screw that. I'm just going to run my tape line right along the edge of this. I'm going to come up. I'm going to cover all this. I'm going to cover everything from this edge up with paper. But there's a patina line right here that I kind of want to leave, even though that's down basically to bare metal. There's no way that I'm going to be able to tape over here on this side and paint it without you seeing a distinct paint line. Whereas if I do a distinct paint line right here, even if I had to lightly feather the edge of that, it'll look like it happened naturally, and that's kind of what I want to stick with. And on this side, of course, that bracket stands out like a sore thumb, but also a large portion of this area is visible, even though your inner fenders come out here somewhere and cover a large portion of this. I'm still going to hit it. The main thing is I want to catch this very bottom line nice and crisp all the way across, just for my own sake. I'll continue that line across right here, and that's a tricky area right there. I'll probably just follow that little curve around. All this will be same thing with the fender on the rhino liner stuff. All this will be painted, but I'm going to be really precarious about where I put my tape lines and stuff, just so I can make it look as natural as possible. Now we wait a few minutes. All right, guys, I apologize. I got in a little bit of a rush. I only had so much paint, and I barely managed to get 2 full coats on this. The color looks really close, and I'm going to let this sit for about an hour, and then I'm going to clear coat it. The original paint on the truck is not clear coated, but I'm going to clear coat this for 2 reasons. I'm hoping that the clear coat will bring out the metal flake in it, and I'm hoping that that'll help protect it a little bit from engine heat and stuff like that. So, you know, I want it to where when you raise the hood up on this thing that it just pops. Well, it's been a little over an hour, and I've already pre-shipped this. I wiped everything off with a tack cloth. Now we're getting ready to throw some clear on it. Well, my slight crisis was averted. I ran out of clear coat right along this edge of that master cylinder bracket, and I found a new can in the shop. It was supposed to be used for that red truck on that rocker panel that I haven't painted yet, so I sacrificed it for this truck because this one's cooler anyway. It's got 2 full coats, actually close, I think 3 coats is what I ended up with. It's got a good sheen to it. There's no runs. And I keep having to remind myself that this is just an old beat up truck firewall, because I get carried away and get so OCD that I'm trying to treat it like it's a side panel or a door or something. But I'm gonna let this sit for about an hour. I'm gonna peel the paper off of it, and then I'll show you what it looks like with that, and then that's gonna do it for this video probably. I'm gonna let this sit the biggest part of the week, and I might do some mild high grit wet sanding on it and maybe some hand buffing. That's gonna pretty much do it. Turned out fabulous, and the color match on that was really close. Well, we finally reached the milestone where we're ready to get the last leg of this firewall done. You can see behind me the finish on it looks dull. That's because I went over it with 1500, then 2000, then 3000, and wet sanded the whole thing. I would just take a drinking bottle full of water, drill a little hole in the top, just squirt a little on the area you're working on, go to town on it. When you first start off sanding, it'll feel a little rough like you're catching, but once it slicks out to where it's just smooth, then you've pretty much got any nibs out of it and you're ready to move on to a different area. And I keep plenty of water going all the time till I get it to a good finish. And then once I get through with that, it'll be covered with white paste, which is the clear coat. And I'll take a rag and wipe it down real good before I go to the next grit of sandpaper. And then when I got done with the 3000, I wiped it all down again. So now it's clean. And I'm going to go to the cutting and polishing part of this. I bought a cheap kit off Amazon that's actually made for detailing your wheels. But interestingly enough, it came with all different kinds of pads for polishing. And here's a wool pad, a medium polishing pad, another medium or medium coarse. Those are the ones that are actually made to go in the holes on if you've got any holes or designs on your wheels. And then it's got some coarse polishing pads that I'm not going to use on this today. I'm going to go with a medium and a light because I'm not just going to get crazy with it. And I was unsure when it came to all these colors that come with this kit, which ones are which. So I Googled it and I downloaded a picture that shows the color of the corresponding pads and what they're actually made for. And if you'll notice right here is a yellow, a blue, and then a yellow down here, and it's like a triangle. That's all for medium to medium coarse polishing. And I'm going to use the blue, which I think is the lightest of the three. And then I'm going to move to the black for the very lightest part of it. Anyway, that's easy to find. And this box the kit does not come in this box. I think it just came in a great big Ziploc bag. But I found these at Harbor Freight on sale for like $3 or $4 a piece, and I bought, I don't know, half a dozen of them about a year ago, and that's what I keep my stuff in. So the rubbing compound and the polish that I'm using is Meguiar's, and it's only because I had this around already. I bought these probably 2 years ago, and you don't use enough of them to wear them out or to empty that out real quick. I don't anyway. I hope it's still good. I shook it up. And then you've got your regular drill. Any cordless drill will work from what I'm able to see on YouTube. I've never done this before. This is another one of those new experiences for me. But we're going to give it a shot. I'm going to turn the camera around and we'll get started. I'll show you what I picked up off YouTube. I'm going to give it a try and pray I don't end up burning through anything. That's why I'm taking it nice and easy. I don't want, as long as it has a good shine to it, I'm not looking for a mirror finish as much as I am just a real clean shine to make it look good when you pull the hood up. That's the only reason why I'm doing this. Okay, so I got my drill, my rubbing compound, and according to what I've seen, it doesn't just take a whole lot. And you're supposed to spread this stuff out a little bit. Put it on the slowest setting. And keep it moving. I try to keep it nice and flat too. I let the pad do the work. Not bad. There's some areas on here where the different pieces of equipment bolt up to this and they're kind of sharp edged. And I noticed it was kind of chewing on my pad just a little bit. I think I probably put a little too much on there. May go a little lighter from here on out. Now I'm going to wipe that down with a rag real quick and just kind of see what it looks like. See if I can tell it's doing anything. And I can tell you right now, just from wiping this towel on there, that it's doing a fine job. That feels really nice. All right, I'm going to move on across and get this whole thing polished down with this pad, and then I'll bring you back in after I wipe it down. We'll assess the situation a little better then and find out if we want to move to a little bit harsher pad, or if I want to go ahead and swap over to the light and go back over it again and see what that does. Well, I got that all compounded down, wiped everything off, and then I went over that and wiped it down with water as well. And I was really pleased with the way this came out. I don't know if the camera does it justice, but it's got a really nice sheen to everything. It's clean. And I'm telling you, a person that didn't know better would not be able to tell that this is not factory. It's actually better than factory. I went ahead, like I told you before, and tied this in on the top where this paint has rubbed off over time. I wanted to leave that. Then I'll clear over it later. And the transition between the two colors is so close. I honestly think most people would never be able to tell. It just looks like an old truck that doesn't have as many miles on it as what it does. Anyway, you absolutely can buff and polish. I'm not going to put any polish on this because I'm actually supposed to wait 2 to 3 weeks before I do that. But I wanted to go ahead and get this content out, so I'm going to leave it with you right here. And we're just eating this elephant a bite at a time, guys. All right, guys, so that's definitely going to be a wrap for this video. Just remember, you can buff and polish with a drill. If you don't have a buffer, but you got a drill, get on Amazon. I'm going to try to remember to leave links in the description of what I bought. It's cheap. You can get those pads, put it on your drill, get a little rubbing compound, a little polish, Now I did not polish this because I read the directions on my clear can and it said you should wait 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm a little apprehensive. I hope I didn't screw up by even putting a little bit of rubbing compound on here, but I went really light with it, and I washed this off with water as soon as I got done. So we're going to let that sit for a while. I'm famous for always getting in a hurry because I'm always trying to just accomplish the next thing. I hope that you love the content or at least like it. I hope you'll tune in and keep watching as we bring Penny to life. That's what I named that truck because it looks like an old penny. Anyway, for Ruski's Garage, this is Shaw. I'm going to sign off for now, but remember, life's too short to take life too seriously. Enjoy the ride. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.